No, just don't think about it.
All right. What's up, world? Welcome to the Weirdness. My name is Brian Target, here with my best friend co-host, Rob Biddle, and we are joined by a good friend, awesome friend, Zoe. How are you doing, Zoe?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Rob, how you been?
Pretty good. I guess a little bit, well, I don't want to get off topic, but, it was a little bit of a, not a rough day, but a different day. But
A different day.
we got watermelon.
Watermelon.
Got podcast, and everything's good.
Yeah. What's been on your mind lately, Rob?
Right, like today or just in general?
Just in general, I guess.
There's a lot of change in the last week. I've been going through, moving,
Probably, yeah.
Moving to a different state altogether, and kind of like leaving behind a lot of things. I'm gradually getting, acclimated to where I'm at, and kind of, and understanding that. I feel like that's kind of a kind of like not a battle, but a kind of like a transition that I'm kind of flowing into, and it feels nice. I like it.
Experience.
A lot of mixed emotions, I would say, but mostly in a good way. Mixed emotions.
Awesome. How about you, Zoe?
Oh, man. Well, we did talk about it a little bit. Working on being a better person and striving to be the person who I want to be and trying to take little steps in that direction.
You tried yoga for the first time today?
Yeah, I did.
How was that?
Actual yoga. Not just playing around yoga. I tried to do it for real. It was really nice. It was calming. It didn't feel weird. I feel like I did it at home. So if you go to a yoga studio and you're in a room with a bunch of other people, I feel like you kind of feel pressured. Maybe you're not doing it right or something, and people are watching you, whatever. But being at home is comfortable and can get you in the right mind space. And I felt very calm and relaxed, and I had good positive energy after doing so.
That's
Sweet.
nice.
Yeah.
That's good.
What's been on your weird thoughts lately, Rob? What's been going on in your weirdness head?
I guess if you want to talk in general about, what's going on in my head, you look anywhere, and things in society, kind of everyday life. Even if you go to a store, there's a lot of things. A lot of things based on, things you can buy, materialism. Just I don't know. That's always on my mind.
Thinking about that, I've actually been thinking. I don't know if you've thought about this, but I've been thinking since you moved here in a materialist way, you've kind of shed probably a lot of stuff out of your life to move here.
You actually find out how much stuff you actually have and realize, holy shit, I can't bring everything with me to another state.
And you have to pick and choose.
Well,
what's important, what's not.
Before I moved, I kind of had I would say a year back before I even actually attempted to move. I knew I had to just kind of cut down on, I wanted to be more minimalist.
Yeah.
There was some things that I just really didn't need. I sold and kind of just using the things that I know I'm going to use, and I've never really been a knick-knack kind of person, but going off of that, I kind of wanted to force myself to be a little bit less. Have a little bit less things. What do I need? What do I use, and what tools do I need, and just bring that.
Yeah. That's interesting. I don't know about myself, but what about you, Zoe? Thinking about have you ever felt controlled by materials ever? Because I think I have been for sure.
I don't necessarily think that I am so much controlled by materialism. I think with the way that I grew up and moving around so much, because I did move, 15 times or something, and wherever I wasn't even staying where I was. It was always a friend's house or back and forth between mom and dad. And my mom called me the bag lady because I literally kept everything that I needed in bags to bring with me someplace, and I never really kept on to sentimental items. I know when we moved here, and I had to go through Matt's room with him, that was a struggle because Matt's got a lot of stuff that he wanted to keep, things that were sentimental. My boyfriend Matt. So he had a lot of stuff to go through, things that he's holding on from your dad, and from he even had something from his ex-girlfriend in his bedroom. Like, he didn't throw away anything. So going through that was, for me, probably easier because it's not his stuff, but to know, like, I have just a folder of things that I have from my past, like birthday cards and things that my friends made me from, like, elementary and middle school. Then once I came into high school, because I moved around, I didn't really keep anything sentimental from people, so that's like the only items that I have. However, in the house, in this apartment, it feels a little bit cluttered all the time, and even though it's only now 3 people living here, like, in a small space, you do really feel how much stuff you have. And I am trying to work on ways to eliminate the clutter, because the clutter, it gets you emotional sometimes, subconsciously, even if you don't realize it. Like, a little bit claustrophobic, but organizing and cleaning, like, that helps you release that energy. So
I know that when I moved here, I remember going through my room and having, like, it was weird, like, all these little things that reminded me of my friends or my parents or growing up, and, like, having to shed that away and then bringing it with me and, like, sitting it around, and then, like, slowly over the last 3 years, it kind of, like,
it just,
you know, like, let it go in a weird way, you know. I wonder why people do that.
Well, half the things that were in Matt's room, I know he never talked about them, thought about them, looked at them, pulled them out. Like, they were things that were just sitting in a drawer.
Yeah.
In his little cluttery junk drawer. Like, there was nothing in there that he actually knew was in there. And he just had it for no reason. And that bothers me.
Yeah.
You know, if I have something, I want it to have a purpose. I want to be able to look at it and time to time, you know it has a practical use, not just some junk sitting around.
Well, I know me and you've had, Rob, conversations of, like, the people, like, needing the next iPhone or needing the next technology and constantly, I think now more than ever, even worse than a kid, like, just this constant berating of just buy this, buy this, buy this, buy
like,
this,
this is the best thing, you gotta buy it. Or like, if you and you're kind of like socially shamed, like, if you don't, you have the iPhone 4, like, what do you 2000, whatever.
I've had that, when I had an iPhone 4 for like 3 years, like, and like people were like, oh my gosh, you have an iPhone 4, like, what are you doing? And like, they're like, it's like, weird.
It's just, I mean,
like, oh, you got a pay-as-you-go phone? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Don't you
it's
have
almost like
data?
certain people will evaluate that person when they meet them based on the clothes they're wearing or, like, the phone they have, the car they drive.
Yeah.
You know, and, like, if you work in, like, a place, small place, like, oh my gosh, Janet got a new car now. Look at her car parked next to my car now. I got to get a new car.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, how, like, people can find themselves slipping away. I mean, I think probably, sometimes everybody has felt they needed to do something like that, or in a weird way, like, oh, look at me sitting here with this shitty ass car. Now what?
That's how my one friend is. I guess I should keep the name redacted, but she won't say it to somebody's face, but if they leave the room, she'll be like, what were they wearing? Or, like, I can't believe Zoe's driving that car. Like, she is so superficial. And the one time I actually got to witness it, her adopted brother just, he was like, hey, like, why are you judging people on what they have?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't mean that he's less of a person just because he's driving this or wearing this or he has this. And he stuck up for people, which was crazy because... hanging out with her, I kind of already expected what to go into, but to have that was a little bit refreshing.
I mean, I guess, I don't know if this is obviously a judgmental thing, but I think some of the most interesting people I've met have literally had nothing.
Yeah. Well, because
they have to make something
out of what they who they are, and it lets their personality shine a little bit more. They're able to use their tool, like they're being their own tool, to kind of really express a lot of things rather than just letting that item express it for you. Because if you just let that item express it for you, like you said, what we were saying before, like, oh, like I have this new car, a new phone, because then you're just letting, there's fundamentally underneath it doesn't really show you are. It's just a tool. It's just an item. Mm-hmm. But the people who are like minimalists had nothing, were kind of brought up. Do you think to really make something, not to kind of have something? Yeah.
Do you think that, like, in a higher power way, that it's being used to control people in a way? or people could be controlled in a way. Like, they're just like, the government's just like, everybody just worry about what fucking Justin Bieber's doing today. And,
just a bunch of menial things that we don't, even affect our lives.
Watch your shows and shut the fuck up and let us do what we're going to do. And everybody else just shut off and zone out and watch.
It's funny because the people who are creating these shows that we watch, like The Handmaid's Tale I got really into, Black Mirror, like all these good shows, like it's really funny because they're tackling topics that people think about, like the government controlling or technology controlling and what could happen in the future. But it's funny for people to watch that and not to actually absorb, like, you don't have to watch what's going to happen and something fictional, but this is actually happening. And I do believe that it's controlled by somebody or something.
Yeah, I mean...
I constantly think of that movie was They Live, with the billboards where the guy puts the glasses on and he looks at all the billboards, obey, buy, sleep, work 8 hours, sleep 8 hours, no play.
It's like people... It's like... We're almost like ants. You get into such a routine that everyone's kind of doing the same thing, and as soon as something veers away from that, it's like, oh, whoa, what's going on? And then you find yourself, oh, I guess I got to get back into that routine that everyone else is kind of following to kind of stay in track with what everyone's doing.
I mean, it is like ant following. Everyone's just, if you look over the city, it's just...
It's just a big...
Everybody's
in the restaurant, out the restaurant.
Busy doing their own thing, on a mission.
Yeah.
Not like, I mean, depending on where you are... in the United States, I guess. New York City is busy. Nobody says hi to you. Coming down to the South, people are friendlier, but it's still only for their own benefit. Like, oh my goodness, like I just talked to Susan today, and her daughter is doing this and that. Like, everybody's just caught up in everybody's business and sometimes.
I feel like every single day that goes by, it's easier and easier to buy something. Every single company, literally, like on my iPhone, you can go on the most anywhere and just at the touch of your finger, spend $100 on this.
There's ads everywhere. You can't go on Instagram without somebody being sponsored by a brand pushing you to buy it. Like
that's another thing. Like those advertisements haunt you.
They're subtle.
You Google something.
It's like a vicious cycle because the money. I guess what I'm assuming the money created for these advertisements is really kind of bought out by people buying what's on the advertisement. It's just like a big circle of this, like kind of like this ball rolling. It's got so much momentum just because of what people are buying and they see and they buy.
Well, it's like there's probably a science to that. Like if you go to Amazon and you look up a product and then the next 10 websites it's like there in the corner. It's like looking at you. It's in your mind. It's like buy me.
One thing I saw that was interesting.
Oh, I'm just gonna buy it.
At some point, you're like, everybody's got a fidget spinner. I'm gonna buy a fidget spinner.
that was a good. The fidget spinners were crazy.
One thing that I thought was interesting and a little bit off topic was that I saw posted online. Somebody said, how our phones are listening, Google, whatever. Somebody said if you listen to Spanish music or like a TV show and you just have that playing next to your phone, you're probably bound to find Spanish advertisements because it is being picked up through the microphone. I don't know how true that is. I haven't tested it myself, but I wouldn't doubt it if it did.
What I always think, and I mean, some people look at me crazy, but it's like if you think, what were like the biggest conspiracy theories people were worried about in the 60s and 70s? They were like, the government's going to be able to be in your house, the government's going to be able to watch you, they're always listening to you, and then slowly but surely it's like everybody's okay with it. They do listen to you. They do it's just it's like now everyone's okay with just there's almost no privacy at all. Every single day that goes by, and it's like everything's recorded and documented and statistics. And it's crazy.
It's an insane amount of information.
Something else was... Oh, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Something else I read is that most of the top internet provider for the routers, like Linksys and Belkin and all that kind of stuff, how they are in cooperation with the CIA to monitor anything that you do on the internet. And the only way that I guess you can get around that is by, creating your own sort of stuff, buying the computer parts and making it yourself, which is beyond my knowledge, but you really can't do anything on the internet publicly.
Somehow linked to some kind of...
Even incognito mode is probably being watched by somebody.
It's almost been made impossible to be able to live in this society without having like a phone, a computer, and all that phone and that computer is doing is just recording every single little thing you do.
I feel what eased people into that was the introduction of social media on the internet, because we're like, okay, well, I'm cool with the people I know knowing about my life, but people don't really think like you're putting something out there, you're putting it for anybody to find. It's not just the people that you know on Facebook, even though your account's private, like anything out there.
I mean, what's your opinion? Do you think the corruption came first or the innovation came first? Do you think the corruption came first or the innovation came first and the government was like, okay, now we can use these tools. Like now we can do this. Now we can record.
I mean, I feel like there might be some kind of like perfect alternation. Like it's kind of like alternates. You know, there's some kind of new technology. Yeah. And then of course like people are somewhat involved in that new technology and creating that. But then you know, it's got to be part of the system in order for it to be like a product or something like that. So therefore, I guess somehow those people who are really in charge of what we were talking about, just, you know, kind of like the whole privacy thing, perhaps it like alternates, you know, something new, but then other people get involved. So it's kind of like the ladder effect, I guess.
What do you think? Like every single time there's a new president, like what's that first week? The first week they're meeting with Google, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook. Like, why did they, like Trump, Obama, like all those guys, one of the first things they did was get all those guys in a room. It's like, okay.
It's like the first president that's been around for like the actual, like, the big boom, like 2008. There was like just the start of a bunch of the social media and technology and cell phones becoming like part of everybody's normal like GPS maps. You just got everything on there, and Obama was like the first president to be involved with that. So it's a completely new like history topic that people are going to learn about in the future. Like it's a totally different generation.
I remember when I didn't even have a computer or a cell phone, and now like I am connected to this thing like it's my body. Like I remember when the cell phones first came out, like my parents didn't even take them with them. Like my dad would come home from work, check the messages on the cell phone, and then put it back up. Wow. Like, and now it's like everybody has to have one.
Well, yeah, now it's so instantaneous. Like you can instantly connect to anyone.
I mean, it'd be interesting in the future to see like how that increases people's, like, I don't know, could that like before when you wanted to know a fact, you had to like get up, go find a book, or go to a library, or like find it. Now it's like, oh, let me just pull out my phone and Google it, and then like instantly you've learned that, and now you're moving on.
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse. I feel like it allows people to delve into different sorts of knowledge that they wanted that wouldn't be so accessible before. But at the same time, I feel like it makes people a little bit lazy because all they have to do is pull out their phone and check it.
I mean, it's weird. Like, have you ever thought of like I have this world in my hand, but yet I'd probably do the same thing with it every single day, and I can unlock so much things.
There's infinite, almost like an infinite amount of possibilities, but it's so limited by
your brain, the user, really.
Well, like, I mean, I forget what I was gonna say. Well, it was. Nah, you guys can go ahead. It was
another thing that what I was thinking about in my weird side of my brain before we started this podcast was like nothing haunts me more, and like Zoe probably even made it worse by the things that she had pulled up before the podcast. But nothing haunts me more than stagnant thoughts, like the fact of like, well, having a stagnant thought, or like even living your life, or like living even days or weeks, just having stagnant thought.
Yeah.
Would you like me to read that quote?
Yeah, pull that quote up that you had that you had said earlier.
While you're pulling that up, you kind of sparked what I was going to say. I think like it's kind of like almost like the stagnant, like it goes along that kind of stagnant thought, because we're talking about how there's like this infinite amount of information, and and you can tell like even something so simple as telling Google whatever. It could be the simplest, or like perhaps like over the years, over time, I perhaps that information is not as genuine as like going to a library and actually finding people who spent years trying to research certain things. But now you can Google something, and for all you know, that information is just based on a top-rated answer that someone and I don't think it's as genuine. So it's kind of like this veering off of just genuine information.
It also kind of eliminates a little bit of the craft of learning too, in a weird way.
Yeah.
Well, it's like how, like, 4chan, like, they can start little things, just little jokes on 4chan, and then all of a sudden it's blown up, and then Reddit hears it, and then people talk about it on Reddit, and now the news sources use Reddit, and, like, the fake news. They're getting false information sometimes, but as one of the quotes, don't believe everything you read on the internet, Abraham Lincoln. Like, no, Abraham Lincoln didn't say that, but it's just a good example of how anybody can post something and you shouldn't believe everything that you read.
Yeah.
But the quote in regards to stagnant thoughts, for me personally, I have a fear of if I'm going to stop, I'm going to die. If I stop doing things that are enriching to me or creatively exciting to me, or if I stop creating, then I feel stagnant. If something isn't growing, it's dying.
Who said that?
I have a...
Chris Hardwick.
I can personally relate a lot to that because, like, I felt like before I moved here, I would find if I would get home from work, if I wasn't involved in, doing something musical or drawing something or whatever I'm doing, I would feel like I would panic. I'd feel like I'm wasting my time. Like, time's precious. And, I'd kind of, like, have this panic thing where, like, I would be forcing myself to do something just because, I mean, even if it may not even been relevant to anything, as long as I was doing something just to kind of not even get things out, but just because I felt like as a society or as like a timeline, I was forced to kind of just do stuff because, like, I didn't want to be stagnant. Like, I didn't want to take any single second and just say, oh, well, I'm just going to not think anything for a minute, because for all I know that minute or second that I wasn't thinking, I could have had, like, the best idea in the world. So therefore, like, I just couldn't even relax. I couldn't just relax.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Just constantly.
Like, you should be relaxed with no thoughts, but it's completely the opposite, that it just puts you in a state of panic.
Yeah. How many people do you think you live your life that absolutely has, like, do not share that exact same feeling that you have?
So you're saying how many people share that, or how many people share that?
Let me see. How many people don't share that, live in the world?
Who don't feel like if they keep going that
because I feel like
dying?
A lot of, like, 9 to 5. Like, if you like get up, you go to work. Like, there's such like an American way of doing things.
I mean, like, every time, like, for instance, the past job that I was at, every time I would go in, like, hey man, what'd you do last night? Or I was like, I would try to work on music. I tried this, and most people would say, oh, I just I would cook, or I would just watch Netflix or something. And I guess I don't know, maybe I don't know what's going on in their heads, but perhaps they didn't have those feelings. I don't know.
I feel like a lot of people watch TV, Netflix, Hulu, whatever you got anymore.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
nothing wrong with that, but I feel like people don't consider that a hobby. I feel like it is a hobby. If you're not doing anything else with your time and that's what you spend a lot of time on, then that's your hobby. That's what you like to do. But people don't consider it a hobby. It's like a pastime or leisure. It's just something that everybody's supposed to do. However, a lot of people live without TV and live without the internet and live without watching shows and being connected, and they're kind of outcasted in a sense. I feel like the 9 to 5, what going back to what we were talking to before about how we keep doing what we're told is right, especially in America, and how other countries view us, like 9 to 5, overworked, overstressed. It is the hamster wheel that we're running on, and the people who don't share those thoughts, that don't feel like if they stop doing something then they're not working towards it, they're just caught up in it. And I feel like a lot of people, I don't know, it's the whole consciousness thing. Like, everybody's like, okay, I'm conscious, I know that this is in my head and this is what's going on, but people don't feel how other people also have those sentient thoughts. But I think the people who caught up in that, do they have sentient thoughts?
Have you ever, guys, like, I think all three of us fancy ourselves as a creative person. I mean, we make, write scripts and make movies. Zoe paints and you do all you Rob music and things like that. Has it ever been frustrating to you? Like, have you ever tried to, like, have a conversation with somebody, like, out in public or at work, and they just, like, look at you like you're just, like, from space? Like, if you go to them with like an idea, like, hey, I had this idea for this movie or for this painting or for music, and they're just like, well, no, I don't never think about that. Like, people are surrounded by art and creativity and, like, things like that, but it never enters their mind of, like, how they would create it or why you would create it. It's like pointless to them.
It's like the guys that don't waste your time on that silly talk, but yet he goes home and watches like Netflix or someone who had to have that creative mind, and that's his life. Is like he feeds into that, but yet it doesn't really understand that as like a full circle, or as in like doesn't really understand both of the sides. That's kind of funny sometimes when you meet someone like that. Or
what do you think leads to stagnant thoughts?
Well, probably. I mean, I think it's like probably a lot like what we were talking about earlier, a long chain of materialism, growing up with materialism, growing up with the need of money, and I mean, in society where you learn to you go to school. What happens after school? You gotta either get more education or you gotta do something, because if you veer off from that, you're kind of like this outcast.
It's almost like our culture, like for a culture to exist, I think art needs to be there.
Oh yeah.
But yet our culture kind of like frowns upon it. There's like the way like the American schedule is set up, it almost leaves no time if you follow that for that person to be creative.
Yeah.
I think what felt so good about doing the yoga today was like living in the moment, and that was something that she had said during her video was, this is your moment.
Yeah.
So it really slows down the rest of the world so that you understand like you're just taking the time to treat yourself.
Have you ever stopped in the middle like of something and be like, I just have to be, I'm standing in line right here, right now, and everything's okay. Like I feel like sometimes your mind is like so far in the future and so far in the past, and like just going 1,000 miles per hour in a different direction. And like, have you ever just stopped and been like, take a breath and be like, okay, this is what I'm doing right now.
That's honestly, that's a huge challenge, and to do that, I feel like it's like what Zoe was saying before. It's super important to really, at some time during the day or at some point, really become one with yourself, because then you're kind of like in the spot, kind of interfaced. You're like kind of like you're forced to kind of, not forced to, but you're kind of, I guess, have like a realization that you are this one, rather than just like constantly going in the future, the past. You're kind of like in the moment constantly, and it's important to kind of realize that sometimes, so you can understand where you're kind of placed in time right now. I don't know.
It's like when somebody says you're breathing and then you focus on breathing, you're like, oh, now I can only think about breathing.
One thing that I like, feeding back a little bit to what you were talking about before, like I try my hardest to live my life of just like question everything. Like you like have to always look around and just like I feel like I meet a lot of people, and I live around a lot of people that like whatever they get on Fox News is how like they'll just like go by that, and like just going by the book of just how they're told to live their life. And like, well, maybe like it isn't like that. Like maybe you could just quit your job and go live in the mountains, or maybe maybe what they're telling you on the news isn't. Just like question every little thing.
One thing
that to constantly keep your mind open to things is crucial, I feel like, to living your life.
Like don't limit your capacity to infinity or something. You have this capacity to really think these infinite thoughts.
Our brains
and take advantage of that, and it's really important to do that, I feel.
One of the things that I was reading, which can kind of go with the materialism we were talking about earlier, was how, I mean, everybody knows that the baby boomers and the older generations look at millennials like, why don't you just get a job? Why don't you just buy a house, buy a car? Like, you can't just walk into a place and
give fence.
You can't just give them your application and call them in a week and get a job. Like, it's really hard. And something that millennials in general are doing is, getting a van and then renovating that to be their house, so that it's like multi-purpose and it's practical for them to go travel and see the world and not be tied down by a job, and have that as their car and their home. And that's just like a source for people now, and a lot of people are doing it because it is hard to get a house and to do all of that. especially when you go to college for so long, which I didn't, but you go to college and you get a degree and then you can barely even use your degree.
Yeah.
So that's something that people are doing, and I would love to do that, to go get like a little adventure van and renovate it and go drive around and not have to worry about a job, just be able to paint and
that's another
like
so many people get caught up, and I didn't go to college either, so I can't talk bad about it, but so many people go live like they're just told from like the young age, like, oh, if you don't go to college you're gonna be nothing.
Yeah.
Like, don't, like, you gotta pick something. And there's so many people that I met that have just like picked these random things to go to college for, and now they're like in this massive amounts of debt.
Yeah.
And I feel like some people like have been taken advantage that way. Oh yeah, like, I mean, there's college is great. Like, you want most people, you want your teachers and your doctors and all that to go to school. But I feel like it's gone so much past that where it's an industry now.
Yeah.
I mean, the government has allowed these schools and colleges almost take advantage of people to make it so expensive and to make it all these little, like, I mean, like, tech, I feel like, what was it, like tech schools and stuff are kind of going out of style, because it's like you can't just go learn a craft.
Yeah.
Right, because getting a technical kind of, whether it's HVAC or art or, all the things that were in my school were like mechanic, welding, and things like that, trades. Unless you're born into a trade, like your father was a mechanic, not a lot of people become mechanics.
Yeah.
And they're pretty viable to society. But getting a college degree is just something like, I'm sure a lot of people have heard. My mom and my dad, they went to college for like a year or a semester, but then never completed it, and there was a lot of pressure. For me, they were like, you're going to be the first one to go to college, and we're going to be so proud of you. But I was never really in love with the idea of learning what is from the books, besides the fact that American school systems sometimes don't teach history and stuff correctly, and the curriculums might not be as great as other places. But, what I think I value my happiness where I am financially and the potential I have to do without having a college degree.
Yeah. Versus
going to get a loan, which people don't really understand, that getting a loan for school is just as much getting a loan for anything else that you would buy. Yeah. But I feel like people who go to college, they treat it just so carelessly. They're like, yeah, I took out a $100,000 loan, I'm going to be a doctor. Like, what? Yeah. Like, one girl that I work with, she's already done 8 years of school or something, and she's got 3 more years, and she's going for her doctorate, and she works all the time. Then she goes to do her internship, and she goes to school 7 days a week, 365. Her day is booked. And, maybe in the end the payoff is good for her, but in my opinion, like, what if I died tomorrow?
Yeah,
then
exactly.
What did I live for? I was stressed out the whole time. I didn't live.
Yeah, you kind of were just...
Well, it's just become such a money thing. Like, there's anybody, they're not, like, invested in your future.
No.
Once you leave that place.
Yeah.
They're just like, okay, you're gone. Give us our fucking money.
Yeah, we did our job.
I don't give a shit if you work at McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, and have 6 jobs, and you went to school for it. It doesn't matter to them.
Because it's just...
I mean, Rob, you're the only one sitting at the table that's been to school,
college. True.
I got a few things to say, because, I mean...
Get it out there, man.
I feel like personally, this was something personal in what was going on in my family, and I mean, and I can kind of see this happening. Like what we were saying earlier about you said a lot of textile schools, a lot of trade schools, a lot of if someone wanted to be a mechanic, I mean, I remember, I think it was like it's a lot of shaming, because, I remember I'm not trying to talk bad about anyone for trying to make their child or family member go to college, but I remember a lot of shaming, like, oh, you want to go to college because that's what the good it's going to get you, it's going to make you money, and you don't have to worry about working long hours and stuff like that. But in a way, if I didn't want to do that, I'd feel shamed, because I feel like it's you people want to see you in this higher class. They want to see you in this, a greater person, but without really looking in both directions. You're kind of just forcing someone to say, go to college because that's what's going to make you money. rather than saying go to mechanic school because that's gonna that's what you're born to do. That's what that's where your genius is. That's where your brain. I can see your brain developing more, becoming more intelligent, and bringing more things to the table rather than just kind of wasting your time at something because you felt ashamed for doing anything else.
Right.
I mean, and that leads into kind of how I was going to college. I mean, I remember, growing up, my grandfather says, "You guys are going to college. There is no, I want my grandsons are going to college.
It's not what do you want to do with your life.
It's not about and it wasn't maybe I want to trade. No, you're going to college.
And it was
just and I'm just like, well, and I just got done having to ask for a bathroom pass. Now I got to figure out what I have to do with the rest of my life because I have to sign this paper and figure out what classes I have to take. It was really ridiculous. It was really ridiculous, and I went for art because that's the only thing. Because I originally went for engineering, and the mathematics involved, and I just found myself just sitting in the, just looking at books constantly and just not. Didn't feel alive. And I realized, okay, maybe I like the artistic aspects of engineering. Yeah. So I was like, all right, maybe I'll just go for art. If I have to have a degree, I might as well just do something. Because if I'm just gonna wait, I don't want to.
And now you have to pay for that.
Yeah,
for the rest of your life, maybe. Yeah. Some people.
And I went to Rowan University, and I went back there a few weeks ago, and the thing looks like Disney World. When I was there, it was like when I was there, there was it was bare bones. And I'm like, this is where the money's going. It's like a big, it's like someone's wearing Abercrombie and Fitch. It's like this thing it's kind of like a clothing now. It's like these universities are kind of like, oh, my university looks better. My university has a lot more people. Looks better. Looks a lot better. Architecture, this and that. And it has nothing to do with the fundamental aspects of intelligence. It has nothing to really do with it. It just kind of veers people off in kind of like this shaming kind of way. Don't get me wrong. There's tons of things to go to college for. I wouldn't want to have an operation to realize my doctor had no education. That is really fun. If you want to be a doctor, those are the things that,
very important.
It's
I feel like
college
there's
is just like a name
people,
now, and
it's like a brand.
It's just a brand, and I don't know. What the weird thing is,
college,
they kind of end certain things up. I went for graphic design because, I was, don't get me wrong. I learned a lot in college. I learned a lot mainly about programs. HTML and stuff like that. A lot of programs and how to work them and stuff. Not a whole lot about experience. It's literally just kind of like this machine line. But besides that, the most valuable information. I swear I've got my college degree's worth of education from this one photography class. And that was because of what she said and not what any kind of test said. And I truly believe all my education was based on that one class. Now, I don't know I forget how many classes I've taken. I went there for 5 years. And the most valuable information, I would say literally 95% of the most what I learned was just because from this one, what my photography teacher said. She said, all right, what is a photo? Because we were learning about cameras and stuff, and she's like, what is a photo and why? And just her kind of questioning, because she was showing us photos of all right, is this a photograph? Is that a photograph? What makes this a photo? What makes this art?
Yeah.
And that just changed my whole world. And I was like, wow, what is a photo? How can you really interact with that? And to me, that's where a lot of my questioning came from, because I took that intelligence, that kind of that idea, and kind of applied it to everything. What is art? What is this? What am I doing? What am I making? How is that going to interact with other
questioning
people?
Everything.
Yeah, literally. And that just because of what, if I never took that photography class, and I almost didn't, just because it was it was one of the extra correct, it was
elective kind of thing.
Yeah, it was but it was the most valuable information, because she told me to get, she taught me to get out of my own head and apply, and kind of walk around in the world rather than just read a book, test yes, no, true, false. Yeah. It really kind of took things to infinity rather than quantifying it.
Right.
That was the most valuable information.
Yeah.
But like, is that a college education? I don't think that's a college education in a way. Just for what she said, that was not a college education, personally.
Yeah.
But yet, I got a college education.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you know, I have a certificate saying I have a college education, personally doesn't mean I have a college education.
Yeah.
You know, that's to me. You know, even though I have documents saying
something you said, and I'm sure I'm going to butcher it, but I heard.
I'm not trying to say, like I said, I'm not trying to say anything about.
No, none of us are saying anything bad about college.
This is just a personal experience of mine and what I took out of it.
I think we're only talking about the bad motives that they have about getting your money and what it really comes down to. But something you thought that made me think about, I don't know what it was that you said, and I'm sure I'm going to butcher it, but it was something that Neil deGrasse Tyson said, and he said, I forget, he said, the first 2 years of a child's life, we're teaching them how to walk and talk. Yeah. And then the rest of the 18 years, we're teaching them how to sit down and shut up.
Wow.
Yeah,
and
that's
true. That alone, changed the way I thought about everything.
Yeah.
Because what is that? Why is that?
Yeah.
We should be encouraging young people to get out, break things, take things apart. Mm-hmm. And that's how you learn, create things. But we're not. We're just pumping them into a system.
We were born with these tools to think and do, but yet we're taught to not use them in the way that we're kind of, because naturally, I feel like you would eventually, you may not learn in the same way as someone going to school, but I feel like there's some kind of universal and fundamental aspects that the universe or the world kind of teaches you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be passed on from time to time, almost kind of like storytelling or something.
Yeah.
The storytelling of intelligence, how to use the tools that you were given.
Yeah.
And kind of work with, this consciousness, or kind of work with the tools that you have now to kind of really expand that, but yet being kind of fundamental with it. And that's kind of like going away from materialism. It's kind of really just working with what you have in the moment. Kind of it's kind of what you were probably somewhat experiencing when you're doing yoga. Yeah. The tools that you have in the moment, thinking in the moment.
One of my favorite quotes that are semi-related to what we're talking about is, I think it was Albert Einstein, and he said, "Don't judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree."
Exactly.
That is completely true. It's a silly quote if you're thinking of it literally, but not everybody is smart in the same ways.
Because that giraffe, that's going to get up that, like you said, tree, right?
Yeah.
Fish climb a tree. It's
like that giraffe, it's its nature. It's easy.
Yeah, it's all the way up there already.
What about, it's just,
but the fish, they can't climb a tree like that. So I think it makes sense, and that's something that I like to think about, because even though I didn't go to college, that's maybe I'm the fish. I didn't climb the tree.
But I mean, I think creatively, if you want to do something creative with your life, anything could be creative, but if you want to follow something in the arts or doing things like that, I think more experiencing things, going out, whether it's traveling and talking or meeting new people, doing new things, it's those experiences that build your life, and it allows you to create new things.
Yeah. When I was living in Florida with my grandfather, he had worked for Verizon his whole life. My father works for Verizon on a tenure from him, and retired there and everything. And when he moved to Florida, he didn't want to not have a job, because he's used to moving and used to doing stuff. He's not that old anyways. So he went and he works for CenturyLink now, but he hates his job. And he would come home every day, and he'd be grumpy at the dinner table, and he'd ruin everybody's mood. And just one of the pressures from them were to go to college, because that was the intentions, was to move to Florida and to go to a Florida college and whatnot. But just seeing him working his life and hating what he's doing and being miserable and taking it out on everybody else was just something that had turned me off to the idea of wanting to do that and to enjoy what I'm doing. And it is it's just not what I wanted. Are we allowed to talk about weed on here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk about it whatever the fuck you want. Whatever the fuck you want to talk about.
Because from people in my life, I feel like I have a lot of examples of negativity that I try to use in a positive way.
Yeah.
And before smoking weed, you know, there's a mind change. You think differently after you've opened up your mind. And, like, my mom, she smoked pot back in the day, but, you know, now she's pretty religious. She's very into the church, and she prays every day. And everything that she does, she raises to God and lets Him take care of it, kind of thing.
Yeah. That's a whole nother podcast.
That is a whole other podcast.
A whole
but for myself, I feel like if I had not smoked pot, I would not have been opened up to the idea stay woke. I would not have been. You know, life is about living. You know, what are you doing if you're not living? And like you said, experiences are what make you who you are. When you're an old person, you don't look back at all the times that you went to work 9 to 5. You look back at the times that you spent with friends and family and the new experiences that you had, and that's who makes you who you are.
Yeah.
So for me, you know, taking that example in my life has really made me think, like, am I happy, and what can I do to be happy? Because that's the most important thing to me. I don't care about going to college and getting a degree. I don't care about the possessions that I have, because when you die, you're not going to have them. I mean, so we're told. Who knows what happens when we die? It's a thing too. But, you know, like the monks live up in a mountain with nothing. Like everything, monks are told to give away every possession that they have to somebody else who could use it. And I feel like, you know, that is self-gratification in itself, because you're happy without it. They're in a group of monks, and they're all happy together.
Yeah.
They don't have anything, and people should learn from that.
Yeah.
To learn that you don't need things to be happy, and you don't have to do what everybody else does.
Really?
If everybody jumps off a bridge with you. But I feel like smoking pot gives you a totally different mindset. The people who don't smoke pot and who don't have an open-mindedness, it's like they need to. I feel like I'm a separate part of society sometimes, because you don't even realize that there's another part of society out there, and you don't realize that there's so much out there until you do open yourself up to it, whether that's smoking weed or not smoking weed, whatever you're doing.
There was something that I wanted to tag off of where you were talking about your grandfather?
Yeah.
Was it about working? And it's like the silliest thing, because it comes from a comedy. I like when I first time I watched Weekend at Bernie's, and there's a quote in there that stuck with me for like my whole life, because I watched it as a young kid.
Yeah.
And they walk in. The scene is they walk into like their boss's big mansion, and they're like awing over it. And they go, and the one guy goes to the other guy. He's like, "Oh, you know, if you work hard, you can have this someday." And he goes, "Oh, my old man worked hard, and all they gave him was more work."
Wow.
And like
deep.
that
is real.
stuck with
that
me.
That is deep.
That's
for
like when
my
you
whole life.
That's exactly what it is. Like, if you take the initiative to do the work that other people aren't doing, then you're just going to be expected to do it. The people who slack off and continuously slack off aren't going to be trusted with responsibilities, because they're not going to get them done. I feel bad because I see that in my own workplace. It's very obvious. Like, the people who do train other people, they're always training other people. They're not even getting to do their own work because they're trusted to do that, and they don't give them any reason otherwise.
I think that all ties into stay woke, which is like the last thing on my notebook, or notebook here.
I mean,
and what does that mean to you, though,
to
Rob?
me, well,
what is stay woke? We know the definition.
I've been dying to say something for
go ahead.
But you guys kind of it's kind of it goes along hand with what I'm gonna say. But I think without the dark there is no light. If you cannot understand, it's in the same way where we're teaching society to veer away from evil, but without really knowing what that evil is. If you don't really truly understand, the equal and opposite duality of life, like without the dark there is no light. Without quiet you cannot appreciate the loud. Yang. It's the yin and yang, and without that, there's no thought dynamic. It's very narrow. It's very kind of congealed in this little life that is based on things that we buy and all these materialism aspects and judging people based on these stupid things that have nothing to fucking do with anything at all.
It really does.
And these small dynamics of life and these small thought processes. It's like no wonder we have a lot of like heinous crimes, because these people don't truly understand the equal. Like, you know, if someone goes into a I never want to see anyone get hurt, but the reason I feel like a lot of the reason why there's so many violence is because these people don't understand the true aspects. The you cannot understand, like, you know, someone going to war who lived in a very secluded part of the nation. You know, they go to war and they finally figure out what that true opposite, that true evil really is, and they come back with this PTSD and like, what the fuck did I experience? And because perhaps they didn't really truly understand the pure evil, so that can really shed the light on what true love and peace is.
Yeah.
And that without those opposites, you cannot have, you know, a pure balance and a pure understanding to what life is and to who you are and to who everyone else is. It's kind of like someone holding a gun and not realizing that this has potential to end someone's life.
God, the first time I held a gun was insane.
And it's just like,
Guns are
and it's
crazy.
just like, you gotta really, you have to treat, like, if people say, oh, why would you even think something like that? Why would you even bring up something so fucking, you know, disgusting and evil? But without that evil, without understanding that evil, you cannot truly understand the opposite of that evil.
Yeah.
So you can kind of bring that to the table, like, you know, understand that there is a lot of bad things, but let that thought, like, these aren't bad thoughts, like, these aren't things that, like, you need to understand the bad to do the good. Like, don't do the bad, but you must understand it and be at peace with it.
Wow.
In order to be centered and I don't know, like, maybe I veered off a little bit, but
no, that was good.
You need to understand the dark to let it shed through the light. Same thing with everything. It's like sound. If it was all mid-tone and everything, what makes pictures and paintings and music so wonderful to look at is because they're playing with these opposite things, the darks and the lights, the bright colors and the dull colors, you know, the sharp sounds and the dull sounds,
made by people that were experienced.
Yeah.
And know how to recreate it.
And these people who create these things understand the dynamics, understand the opposites, to really be at middle with something, to be really at peace and understanding with balance. It's with everything, you know, what goes up must come down. Or, you know, it's like we're throwing a ball in society and it's just staying up. No one knows why it's not coming down or what even looks like when it's coming down. That to me is stay woke. Be aware of everything, but take it in an aspect of how you are as a person. Be aware that everyone's alive. You know, be aware of the evil to be able to love. Because without that, there's chaos, there's panic and all this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
damn, Rob.
Stay woke.
That was good.
Like, instantly, as soon as Rob was talking about that, I thought of a South Park episode, which I think the two creators of that are definitely people who are woke. But but one of the quotes from the episode where Butters got dumped, he says, well, yeah, I'm sad, but at the same time, I'm really happy that something can make me that sad. It's like it makes me feel alive, you know? It makes me feel human. The only way I can feel this sad now is if I felt something really good before, so I have to take the bad with the good. So I guess what I'm feeling is a beautiful sadness, which I feel like is something that goes along with what you were saying.
That was really good.
Keep your life dynamic.
Yeah.
You know, at no point should you limit yourself to any sort of thought. You know, if anyone ever says, you know, why are you thinking that? Keep thinking more like that.
Yeah,
keep
that's when you know as soon as somebody questions
limits.
you know you're on a right track.
Push the fucking limits.
Just keep going.
You know? But,
don't stop.
But understand, you know, that there's always going to be equal and opposite reactions.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean that's what's the beautiful part about life too.
Yeah,
because everything is subjective. I live my life. Every single thing is subjective.
Yeah.
It's like driving a car. Like, at any moment you can cause complete chaos by going to the other lane and causing all these crashes and killing people. But yet you have the ability to be at focus and keep everyone alive and keep yourself alive.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I feel that's a good example. I feel.
Yeah.
But,
I feel that your definition of staying woke is very personal to the individual person.
It is.
I feel like it is, and what you said about recognizing the bad in the world so you can put out the good is, I feel like a society, like I feel like being woke or whatever, you know, I don't even know of a better way to describe it besides to be woke anymore, but I feel like, especially with like the Black Lives movement and all of the racial problems that are going on with America right now, and how people say stay woke in the sense that like don't turn a blind eye to things that are happening just because they're not happening to you kind of thing. I feel like that's what society is all about, is about giving back and staying woke in the sense that, you know, I don't understand how people like Dylan Roof could go to a church and then shoot up people just because he didn't like their race, or you know, the school shootings, the like anything that goes on with the terrorist attacks. And I mean, they are terrorists. They're inflicting terror on everybody, whether they're American or not American, which I think shouldn't be a question for some people. Unfortunately, it is. I think we just need to everybody should be nice to each other. It's like really like
it's just so much easier.
Yeah.
Why can't I let you have your opinions and you let me have my opinions and not fight over it? And, you know, like wars, like all wars are pretty much based off of religion, or at least the origin of them. Like why does there have to be a fight about a religion? We all believe in a higher power, or the people who do, and the higher power is always telling people to be positive, to be nice to their neighbor, to do this and that. I mean, of course there's little things that are outdated in there that people still take as truth, like don't eat shrimp and don't eat pork, and your wife is do this, like obey your husband kind of stuff. Like all of that's outdated. I think people should really take in consideration that it has been thousands of years since most religions have been written down by somebody, and in our society day and age now, we shouldn't take everything literally or follow it literally, because there's no reason to. But I think that's what people need to work towards, as in staying woke, is to realize, like, not turn the blind eye to things that are happening just because they're not happening to you.
Yeah. I mean,
absolutely.
It makes sense, because there's a lot of things in, like, you know, things that we're taught, like religion, is people are taking these things super literally.
I know.
But I feel like a lot of religion is a super metaphorical kind of base. You know, it's really supposed to inflict you internally, not externally. And it seems like there's a lot of people inflicting external actions, perhaps because they don't understand the darkness, because they have to do all these horrible things. You know, they're doing all these horrible things because either they don't understand the light, or there's some kind of imbalance there.
Yeah. Well, most people are raised just to believe it.
Yeah.
Like, and just
don't even question it.
Yeah, don't even question. Like anything that comes into their little circle that could possibly redirect the way they're thinking, they just shut it out.
And just,
just don't.
Limiting
just
of capacity.
Yeah.
It's just.
Well, something that we're gonna go into a whole other podcast here, but something that I've looked into a little bit more closely since I was interested is karma, and karma as a religion. And I know people who say that they don't believe what goes around comes around. Now, maybe I'm just a little bit biased, because growing up, that is my mama, my grandmother's favorite thing. She always said what goes around comes around. You know, when other people did wrong to me, you know, as long as you put out a good energy, like if I gave a homeless person $5 or something, like that's menial to me. I don't really need $5. Maybe I do, but I still give it anyways. Like it'll come around. And I don't understand people who don't believe it, but karma as a religion, like, you're not supposed to think anything bad. You're not supposed to do anything bad. And that whether you're bad in this life or bad in your last life affects how you are in this life and the next life after that, depending on what you believe in. I don't know if I necessarily believe in karma. I don't know if I believe in God. You know, there's things that are questionable that you should question, but it's all, like, just be good. Like, why can't people just be good?
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, it's, you know, and that's a perfect example of people limiting their dynamic abilities. Through their.
It's only just limiting when you really think about it. It's a way to limit.
Because when you limit, you don't understand the full spectrum.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah. So all right, guys. Well, that went pretty crazy. That was good. Yeah. If you guys liked it, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at the Weirdness Pod. Subscribe and stay woke out there.
Woke.
And this is Brian, Rob here,
Zoe,
and don't forget to leave the world more weird than you found it.
Be good.
Be great.